Why are projects delayed? In this video, we are going to see about why are projects delayed. The process of building a schedule for any case study helps really understand how it is done. The basic idea is to get across to break the software project into well-defined tasks, determine the interdependencies among the tasks, determine the time duration for each task, and assign the task to project team members. Each task must have defined outcomes and be associated with a meaningful project milestone. Handling unrealistic deadlines. Perform a detailed estimate using historical data from past projects. Determine the estimated effort and duration for the project. Using an incremental model, develop a software engineering strategy that will deliver critical functionality by the imposed deadline, but delay other functionality until later. Document the plan. Meet with the customer and, using the detailed estimate, explain why the imposed deadline is unrealistic. Be certain to note that all estimates are based on performance on past projects. Also, be certain to indicate the % improvement that would be required to achieve the deadline as it currently exists. Offer the incremental development strategy as an alternative and offer some options. Increase the budget and bring on additional resources to try to finish sooner. Remove many of the software functions and capabilities that were requested. Dispense with reality and wish the project complete using the prescribed schedule, then point out that project history and your estimates show that this is unrealistic and will result in a disaster. Project scheduling. On large projects, hundreds of small tasks must occur to accomplish a larger goal. Some of these tasks lie outside the mainstream and may be completed without worrying of impacting on the project completion date. Other tasks lie on the critical path. If these tasks fall behind schedule, the completion date of the entire project is put into jeopardy. Project manager's objectives. Define all project tasks. Build an activity network that depicts their interdependencies. Identify the tasks that are critical within the activity network. Build a timeline depicting the planned and the actual progress of each task. Track task progress to ensure that delay is recognized one day at a time. To do this, the schedule should allow progress to be monitored and the project to be controlled. Software project scheduling distributes estimated effort across the planned project duration by allocating the effort to specific tasks. During early stages of project planning, a macroscopic schedule is developed, identifying all major process framework activities and the product functions to which they apply. Later, each task is refined into a detailed schedule where specific software tasks are identified and scheduled. Scheduling for projects can be viewed from two different perspectives. In the first view, an end date for release of a computer-based system has already been established and fixed. The software organization is constrained to distribute effort within the prescribed time frame. In the second view, assume that rough chronological bounds have been discussed, but that end date is set by the software engineering organization. Effort is distributed to make best use of resources, and an end date is defined after careful analysis of the software. The first view is encountered far more often than the second. Basic principle of project scheduling: compartmentalization, interdependency, time allocation, effort validation, defined responsibilities, defined outcomes, defined milestones, relationship between people and effort. The most important point to get across is that adding people to a project in an arbitrary manner does not reduce the project completion time and may in fact lengthen the completion time. There are times when a project schedule has slipped so badly that adding people cannot save it, and the only option a manager has is to renegotiate the completion date with a customer. Effort estimation techniques. In this video, we are going to see about effort estimation techniques. Effort allocation, front-end activities, customer communication, analysis, design, review and modification, construction activities, coding and code generation, testing and installation, unit and integration test, white box and black box testing, regression, effort distribution, classical rule 40-20-40, later 60-10-30, now 50-10-40. Software effort estimation techniques. Barry Boehm, in his classic work on software effort models, identified the main ways of deriving estimates of software development effort as Parkinson, where the staff effort available to do a project becomes the estimate. Analogy, where a similar completed project is identified and its actual effort is used as a basis of the estimate. Price to win, where the estimate is a figure that seems sufficiently low to win a contract. Top-down, where an overall estimate for the whole project is broken down into effort required for component tasks. Bottom-up, where component tasks are identified and sized and these individual estimates are aggregated. Expert judgment, based on the advice of knowledgeable staff. Algorithmic models, which use effort drivers representing characteristics of the target system and the implementation environment to predict effort. Clearly, the Parkinson method is not really an effort prediction method, but a method of setting the scope of a project. Similarly, price to win is a way of identifying a price and not a prediction. Although Boehm rejects them as prediction techniques, they have value as management techniques. There is, for example, a perfectly acceptable engineering practice of design to cost. Bottom-up estimating. The bottom-up approach, the estimator breaks a project into its component tasks. With a large project, the process of breaking it down into tasks is iterative. Each task is decomposed into its component subtasks, and these in turn could be further analyzed. It is suggested that it is repeated until you get tasks an individual could do in a week or two. why is this not a top-down approach? After all, you start from the top and work down. Although this top-down analysis is an essential precursor to bottom-up estimating, it is really a separate process, that of producing a work breakdown structure, that is WBS. The bottom-up part comes in adding up the calculated effort for each activity to get an overall estimate. The bottom-up approach is best at the later, more detailed stages of project planning. If this method is used earlier, assumptions about the characteristics of the final system and project work methods will have to be made. Where a project is completely novel or there is no historical data available, the estimator would be forced to use the bottom-up approach. A procedural code-oriented approach. The bottom-up approach described above works at the level of activities. In software development, a major activity is writing code. Here, we describe how a bottom-up approach can be used at the level of software components. Envisage the number and types of software modules in the final system. Most information systems, for example, are built from a small set of system operations, for example, insert, amend, update, display, delete, print. The same principle should equally apply to embedded systems, albeit with a different set of primitive functions. Estimate the SLOC of each identified module. One way to judge the number of instructions likely to be in a program is to draw up a program structure diagram and to visualize how many instructions would be needed to implement each identified procedure. The estimator may look at existing programs which have a similar functional description to assist in this process. Estimate the work content, taking into account complexity and technical difficulty. The practice is to multiply the SLOC estimate by a factor for complexity and technical difficulty. This factor will depend largely on the subjective judgment of the estimator. For example, the requirement to meet particular highly constrained performance targets can greatly increase programming effort. Calculate the work delays effort. Historical data can be used to provide ratios to convert weighted SLOC to effort. The top-down approach and parametric models. The top-down approach is normally associated with parametric or algorithmic models. These may be explained using the analogy of estimating the cost of rebuilding a house. This is of practical concern to house owners who need insurance cover to rebuild their property if destroyed. Unless the house owner is in the building trade, is unlikely to be able to calculate the numbers of bricklayer hours, carpenter hours, electrician hours, and so on required. Insurance companies, however, produce convenient tables where the user owner can find estimates of rebuilding costs based on such parameters as the number of stories and the floor space of a house. This is a simple parametric model. A parametric model will normally have one or more formulae in the form: effort is equal to system size into productivity rate. For example, system size might be in the form thousands of lines of code, KLOC, and have a specific value of 3 KLOC while the productivity rate was 40 days per KLOC. These values will often be matters of judgment. A model to forecast software development effort therefore has two key components. The first is the method of assessing the amount of the work needed. The second assesses the rate of work at which the task can be done. If you have figures for the effort expended on past projects in work days, for instance, and also the system sizes in KLOC, you should be able to work out a productivity rate as productivity is equal to effort by size. A more sophisticated way of doing this would be by using the statistical technique least squares regression to derive an equation in the form effort is equal to constant 1 plus size into constant 2. Some parametric models such as that implied by function points are focused on system or task size, while others such as COCOMO are more concerned with productivity factors. Having calculated the overall effort required, the problem is then to allocate proportions of that effort to the various activities within the project. The top-down and bottom-up approaches are not mutually exclusive. Project managers will probably try to get a number of different estimates from different people using different methods. Some parts of an overall estimate could be derived using a top-down approach, while other parts could be calculated using a bottom-up method. Expert judgment. In this animation, we are going to learn about expert judgment. Expert judgment. An estimate of task effort from someone who is knowledgeable about either the application or the development environment. This method is often used when estimating the effort needed to change an existing piece of software. The estimator would have to examine the existing code in order to judge the proportion of code affected and from that derive an estimate. Someone already familiar with the software would be in the best position to do this. Some have suggested that expert judgment is simply a matter of guessing, but our own research has shown that experts tend to use a combination of an informal analogy approach, where similar projects from the past are identified, supplemented by bottom-up estimating. There may be cases where the opinions of more than one expert may need to be combined. Estimating by analogy. This is also called case-based reasoning. The estimator identifies completed projects, that is source cases, with similar characteristics to the new project, that is the target case. The effort recorded for the matching resource case is then used as a base estimate for the target. The estimator then identifies differences between the target and the source and adjusts the base estimate to produce an estimate for the new project. This can be a good approach where you have information about some previous projects but not enough to draw generalized conclusions about what might be useful drivers or typical productivity rates. A problem is identifying the similarities and difference between applications where you have a large number of past projects to analyze. One attempt to automate this selection process is the Angel software tool. This identifies the source case that is nearest the targets by measuring the Euclidean distance between cases. The Euclidean distance is calculated as distance is equal to square root of target parameter 1 minus source parameter 1 the whole square plus and so on up to target parameter n minus source parameter n the whole square. The above explanation is simply to give an idea of how Euclidean distance may be calculated. Distance is equal to square root of target parameter 1 minus source parameter 1 the whole square plus and so on up to target parameter n minus source parameter n the whole square. The Angel package uses rather sophisticated algorithms based on this principle. ALBRECHT function point analysis. The basis of function point analysis is that information systems comprise 5 major components or external user types in ALBRECHT's terminology that are of benefit to the users. External input types are input transactions which update internal computer files. External output types are transactions where data is output to the user. Typically, these would be printed reports, as screen displays would tend to come under external inquiry types. External inquiry types note the US spelling of inquiry or transactions initiated by the user which provide information but do not update the internal files. The user inputs some information that directs the system to the details required. Logical internal file types are the standing files used by the system. The term file does not sit easily with modern information systems. It refers to a group of data items that is usually accessed together. It may be made up of one or more record types. For example, a purchase order file may be made up of a record type purchase order plus a second which is repeated for each item ordered on the purchase order item. In structured systems analysis, a logical internal file would equate to a data store, which record types would equate to relational tables or entity types. External interface file types allow for output and input that may pass to and from other computer applications. Examples of this would be the transmission of accounting data from an order processing system to the main ledger system, or the production of a file of direct debit details on a magnetic or electronic medium to be passed to the banker's automated clearing system, that is BACS. Files shared between applications would also be counted here. The analyzer identifies each instance of each external user type in the application. Each component is then classified as having either high, average, or low complexity. The counts of each external user type in each complexity band are multiplied by specified weights, table 1, to get FP scores, which are summed to obtain an overall FP count, which indicates the information processing size. With FPs, as originally defined by ALBRECHT, the question of whether the external user type was of high, low, or average complexity was intuitive. The International FP User Group, that is IFPUG, has now promulgated rules on how this is assessed. For example, in the case of logical internal files and external interface files, the boundaries shown in Table 2 are used to decide the complexity level. Similar tables exist for external inputs and output. Function point analysis recognizes that the effort required to implement a computer-based information system relates not just to the number and complexity of the features provided, but also to the operational environment of the system. 14 factors have been identified which can influence the degree of difficulty associated with implementing a system. The list that ALBRECHT produced related particularly to the concerns of information system developers in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Some technology, which was then new and relatively threatening, is now well established. The technical complexity adjustment, that is TCA calculation, has had many problems. Some have even found that it produces less accurate estimates than using the unadjusted function point count. Because of these difficulties, we omit further discussion of the TCA. Function points Mark II. The Mark II method was originally sponsored by what was then the CCTA, that is Central Computer and Telecommunications Agency, now the Office of Government Commerce, or OGC, which lays down standards for UK government projects. The Mark II label implies an improvement and replacement of the ALBRECHT method. The ALBRECHT, now IFPUG method, however, has had many refinements made to it, and SPM Mark II remains a minority method used mainly in the United Kingdom. As with ALBRECHT, the information processing size is initially measured in unadjusted function points UFPs, to which a technical complexity adjustment can then be applied TCA. The assumption is that an information system comprises transactions which have the basic structure as shown. For each transaction, the UFPs are calculated. WI into number of input data element types plus WE into number of entity types referenced plus WO into number of output data element types. WI, WE and WO are weightings derived by asking developers the proportions of effort spent in previous projects developing the code dealing respectively with inputs, accessing and modifying stored data and processing inputs and processing outputs. The proportions of efforts are then normalized into ratios or weightings which add up to 2.5. This process for calculating weightings is time-consuming, and most FP counters use industry averages, which are currently 0.58 for WI, 1.66 for WE, and 0.26 for WO. Mark II FPs follow the ALBRECHT method in recognizing that one system delivering the same functionality as another may be more difficult to implement but also more valuable to the users because of additional technical requirements. For example, the incorporation of additional security measures would increase the amount of effort to deliver the system. The identification of further factors to suit local circumstances is encouraged. Simons is very much against the idea of using function points to estimate SLOC rather than effort. One finding by Simons is that productivity, that is the effort per function point to implement a system, is influenced by the size of the project. In general, large projects up to a certain point are more productive because of economies of scale. However, beyond a certain size, they tend to become less productive because of additional management overheads. Some of the rules and weightings used in FP counting, especially in the case of ALBRECHT's flavor, are rather arbitrary and have been criticized by academic writers on this account. Cosmic full function points. In this video, we are going to see about collect cosmic full function points. While approaches like that of IFPUG are suitable for information systems, they are not helpful when it comes to sizing real-time or embedded applications. This has resulted in the development of another version of the function points, the cosmic FFP method. The full function point FFP method has its origins in the work of two interlinked research groups in Quebec, Canada. At the start, the developers were at pains to stress that this method should be seen as simply an extension to the IFPUG method for real-time systems. The original work of FFPs have been taken forward. The formation of the Government Software Measurement Consortium, that is COSMIC, which has involved not just the original developers in Canada, but others from many parts of the world, including Charles Symons, the originator of Mark II function points. Interestingly, there has been little participation by anyone from the United States. The argument is that the existing function point methods are effective in assessing the work content of information systems, where the size of the internal procedures mirrors the number of external features. With a real-time or embedded system, its features will be hidden because the software's user will probably not a human, but a hardware device or another software component. COSMIC deals with this by decomposing the system architecture into a hierarchy of software layers. The software component to be sized can receive requests for services from layers above and can request service from those below it. At the same time, there could be separate software components at the same level that engage in peer-to-peer communication. This identifies the boundary of the software components to be assessed and thus the points at which it receives inputs and transmits output. Inputs and outputs are aggregated into data groups, where each group brings together data items that relate to the same object of interest. Data groups can be moved about in 4 ways. Entries E, which are affected by subprocesses that move the data group into software component in question from a user outside its boundary. This could be from another layer or another separate software component in the same layer via peer-to-peer communication. Exit X, which are affected by subprocesses that move the data group from the software component to a user outside its boundary. Reads R, which are data movements that move data groups from persistent chains such as the database into the software component. Writes W, which are data movements that transfer data groups from the software component into persistent storage. The overall FFP count is derived by simply adding up the counts for each of the 4 types of data movement. The resulting units are CFSU, Cosmic Functional Size Units. The method does not take account of any processing of data groups once they have been moved into software component. The framers of the method do not recommend its use for systems involving complex mathematical algorithms, for example, but there is provision for the definition of local versions for specialized environments which could incorporate counts of other software features. Cosmic FFPs have been incorporated into an ISO standard, ISO IEC 19761-2003. Prior to this, there were attempts to produce a single ISO standard for functional size measurements, and there is an ISO document, ISO IEC 14143-1998, which lays down some general principles. ISO has decided diplomatically that it is unable to judge the relative merits of the 4 main methods in the field, IFPUG, Mark II, NESMA, and Cosmic FFP, and all 4 have been allowed to submit their methods as candidates to become ISO standards and then to let the market decide. COCOMO 2, a parametric productivity model. The first step was to derive an estimate of the system size in terms of KDSI. The constants C and K, see Table 3, depended on whether the system could be classified in Boehm's terms as organic, semi-detached, or embedded. These related to the technical nature of the system and the development system. Organic mode. This would typically be the case when relatively small teams develop software in a highly familiar in-house environment and when the system being developed was small and the interface requirements were flexible. Embedded mode. This meant that the product being developed had to operate within very tight constraints and changes to the system were very costly. Semi-detached mode. This combined elements of the organic and the embedded modes or had characteristics that came between the two. The exponent value k, when it is greater than 1, means that larger projects are seen as requiring disproportionately more effort than the smaller ones. This reflected Boyan's finding that larger projects tended to be less productive than smaller ones because they needed more effort for management and coordination. Over the years, Barry Boehm and his co-workers have refined a family of cost estimation models, of which the key one is COCOMO 2. This approach uses various multipliers and exponents, the values of which have been set initially by experts. However, a database containing the performance details of executed projects has been built up and periodically analyzed so that the experts' judgments can be progressively replaced by values derived from actual projects. The new models taken into account that there is now a wider range of process models in common use than previously. Estimates are required at different stages in the system lifecycle, and COCOMO 2 has been designed to accommodate this by having models for 3 different stages. Application composition. The external features of the system that the user will experience are designed. Prototyping will typically be employed to do this. With small applications that can be built using high productivity application building tools, development can stop at this point. Early design. The fundamental software structures are designed with larger, more demanding systems where, for example, there will be large volumes of transactions and performance is important. Careful attention will need to be paid to the architecture to be adopted. Post-architecture. The software structures undergo final construction, modification, and tuning to create a system that will perform as required. To estimate the effort for application composition, the counting of object points is recommended by the developers of the COCOMO 2. This follows the function point approach of counting externally apparent features of the software. It differs by focusing on the physical features of the application, such as screens and reports, rather than logical ones such as entity types. This is seen as being more useful where the requirements are being elicited via prototypes. At the early design stage, FPs are recommended as the way of gauging a basic system size. An FP count may be converted to an LOC equivalent by multiplying the FPs by a factor for the programming language that is to be used. The following model can then be used to calculate an estimate of person-months. PM is equal to A into size into SF into EM1 into EM2 into and so on up to EMN, where PM is the effort in person months, A is a constant which was set in 2000 at 2.94, size is measured in KDSI, which may have been derived from an FP count as explained above, and SF is exponent scale factor. The scale factor is derived thus: SF is equal to B plus 0.01 into summation of exponent driver ratings, where B is a constant currently set at 0.91. The effect of the exponent to the power of scale factor is to increase the effort predicted for larger projects, that is to take account of diseconomies of scale which make larger projects less productive. The qualities that govern the exponent drivers used to calculate the scale factor are listed below. The fact that these factors are used to calculate an exponent implies that the lack of these qualities increases the effort required disproportionately more on larger projects. Precedentedness, PREC. This quality is the degree to which there are precedents or similar past cases for the current project. The greater the novelty of a new system, the more uncertainty there is and the higher the value given to the exponent driver. Development flexibility, flex. This reflects the number of ways there are of meeting the requirements. The less flexibility there is, the higher the value of the exponent driver. Architecture or risk resolution, RESL. This reflects the degree of uncertainty about the requirements. If they are liable to change, then a high value would be given to this exponent driver. Team cohesion, team. This reflects the degree to which there is a large dispersed team, perhaps in several countries, as opposed to there being a small tightly knit team. Process maturity, PMAT. Software quality explains the process maturity model. The more structured and organized the way the software is produced, the lower the uncertainty and the lower the rating will be for this exponent driver. Each of the scale factors for a project is rated according to a range of judgments: very low, low, nominal, high, very high, extra high. There is a number related to each rating of the individual scale factors, table 4. These are summed, then multiplied by 0.01 and added to the constant 0.91 to get the overall exponent scale factor. In the COCOMO 2 model, the effort multipliers EM adjust the estimate to take account of productivity factors but do not involve economies or diseconomies of scale. The multipliers relevant to early design are in Table 5 and those used at the post-architecture stage in Table 6. Each of these multipliers may, for a particular application, be given a rating of very low, low, nominal, high, or very high. Each rating for each effort multiplier has an associated value. A value greater than 1 increases development effort, while a value less than 1 decreases it. The nominal rating means that the multiplier has no effect. The intention is that the values that these and other ratings used in COCOMO 2 will be refined over time as actual project details are added to the database. At a later stage of the project, detailed design of the application will have been completed. There will be a clearer idea of application size in terms of lines of code, and the factors influencing productivity will be better known. A revised estimate of effort can be produced based on the broader range of effort modifiers seen in Table 6. The method of calculation is the same as for early design. Task network and scheduling methods. In this video, we are going to see about task network and scheduling methods. Building a task graph or activity network is the key to build a feasible schedule. The task graph represents inter-task dependencies very clearly. This allows managers to determine which tasks may be done in parallel and which tasks need to be done first. Scheduling. Program Evaluation and Review Technique (PERT), Critical Path Method (CPM) is a project scheduling method that determines critical path, the chain of tasks that determine the duration of the project, earliest time that a task can begin if all preceding tasks are completed in the shortest possible time, latest time for task initiation that will not delay the project, latest and earliest finish for the overall project, total float, that is a maximum slippage without overall delay, implementation, automated tools, often use a task network as input, work breakdown structure, granularity equals level of WBS, first level, high-level tasks. Second level are those tasks that complete the first level. The benefits of using WBS can be used to allocate and delegate responsibility to help accomplish different tasks or activities, for example, control through greater accountability. Can help sequence and schedule the timing of different events to improve effectiveness of how time is allocated. For example, the most efficient sequence of accomplishing activities can be understood. Improves resource planning and the efficiency of how resources are consumed. For example, accurate forecasts for project staffing to save cost. Can be used as a basis of financial exception reporting. For example, actual budget cost allowances and also forecast more accurately the project costs. Can be used for risk management, for example, to identify risks and used as an ongoing process for monitoring risk for a project. Gantt chart. A Gantt chart provides a graphical illustration of a schedule that helps to plan, coordinate, and track specific tasks in a project. Developed in 1917 by Henry L. Gantt. A Gantt chart is constructed with a horizontal axis representing the total time span of the project, broken down into increments, for example, days, weeks, or months, and a vertical axis representing the tasks that make up the project. Illustration of a Gantt chart. The use of critical path analysis as a tool. Good visual communication and planning tool for effective time management. Displays clearly interdependent relationships that exist between the different activities or tasks to be completed. Arrange tasks or activities into an optimum sequence of events, allowing a project to be completed in the most efficient time possible. Elapsed time or estimate time to complete the project can be calculated. Highlight those activities which are critical activities, for example, those tasks which must be completed within their planned time, otherwise the elapsed time or estimated time of the project will not be achieved. Enables more effective resource planning. Resource can be diverted from non-critical to critical activities. For example, staff could be moved from one task to another should be the problems of overrunning occur on critical activities. This does assume that resources moved are directly substitutable between tasks. Highlight float times for all activities. For example, the amount of time an activity or task can slip past its planned completion time without delaying this elapsed time or estimated time of the project. All critical activities have a float time of 0 because each must be completed within their planned completion time, otherwise the elapsed time of the project won't be achieved. Process of critical path analysis. Break down project into a logical sequence of activities to be completed. Estimate the time duration of each activity. Arrange activities in the most efficient sequence of events and estimate the elapsed time of the project. Advantages of critical path analysis (CPA). Identifies interrelationships between different tasks or activities. Resources can be planned and allocated from using it, for example, staff planning. Good communication and planning tool for time management. Disadvantages of critical path analysis (CPA). Assumes a trade-off between time and money, but most staff cost could be a fixed, not variable cost. The complexity of the diagram will increase as more activities are included. Key uncertainties often exist when estimating the duration for activities, therefore can be a poor prediction for elapsed time. An arrow is used to represent each activity or task. To accomplish, the letter above the arrow represents the activity in shorthand and the duration of the activity is recorded below the arrow, for example, hours, days or months. Each activity or task that happen has a preceding event circle and each circle is pre-numbered. For example, above circle 5 is used as an example to show how this would be the fifth event or circle to be completed in the diagram. The earliest event time (EET) for an activity is recorded in the circle preceding each activity, represented by an arrow as work from left to right. The last event time (LET) for an activity is recorded in the circle following the activity arrow. For example, the latest time an activity must be completed by in order to achieve the elapsed time of the project. A dummy event or activity is used when a task or activity, represented by an arrow, follows more than one preceding activity. For example, the arrow could be drawn from more than one potential circle in the diagram. Monitoring and control progress. In this video, we are going to see about monitoring and control progress. Introduction. Once work schedules have been published and the project is started, attention must be focused on progress. This requires monitoring of what is happening, comparison of actual achievement against the schedule, and where necessary, revision of plans and schedules to bring the project as far as possible back on target. The importance of producing plans that can be monitored, for example, ensuring that activities have clearly defined and visible completion points. Information about project progress is gathered and what actions must be taken to ensure that a project meets its target. Creating the framework. Exercising control over a project and ensuring that targets are met is a matter of regular monitoring, finding out what is happening and comparing it with targets. There may be a mismatch between the planned outcome and the actual ones. Replanning may then be needed to bring the project back on target. A model of the project control cycle ensures how once the initial project plan has been published, project control is a continual process of monitoring progress against that plan and where necessary revising the plan to take account of deviations. It also illustrates the important steps that must be taken after completion of the project so that the experience gained in any one project can feed into the planning stages of future projects, thus allowing us to learn from past mistakes. In practice, we are normally concerned with 4 types of shortfall delays in meeting target dates: shortfalls in quality, inadequate functionality, and cost going over target. responsibility. The overall responsibility for ensuring satisfactory progress on a project is often the role of the project steering committee, project management board, or in Prince 2 project board. Day-to-day responsibility will rest with the project manager, and in all but the smallest of projects, aspects of this can be delegated to team leaders. The typical reporting structure found with medium and large projects. With small projects, employing around half a dozen or fewer staff, individual team members usually report directly to the project manager, but in most cases, team leaders will collate reports on their section's progress and forward summarizes to the project manager. These in turn will be incorporated in the project level report for the steering committee and via them or directly progress reports for the client. Reporting may be oral or written, formal or informal, and regular or ad hoc. Informal communication is necessary and important, but any such information reporting of project progress must be complemented by formal reporting procedure. Assessing progress. Some information used to assess project progress will be collected routinely, while other information will be triggered by specific events. Wherever possible, this information should be objective and tangible, whether or not a particular report has been delivered. Sometimes, however, assessment will have to depend on estimates of the proportion of the current activity that has been completed. Setting checkpoints. It is essential to set a series of checkpoints in the initial activity plan. Checkpoints may be regular, monthly for example, tied to specific events such as the production of a report or other deliverable, taking snapshots. The frequency of progress reports will depend upon the size and degree of risk of the project. Team leaders, for example, may want to assess progress daily, particularly when employing inexperienced staff, whereas project managers may find weekly or monthly reporting appropriate. At the level of individual developers, however, strong arguments exist for the formal weekly collection of information. This ensures that information is provided while memories are still relatively fresh and provides a mechanism for individuals to review and reflect upon their progress. If reporting is to be weekly, then it makes sense to have basic units of work that last about a week. Major or project level progress reviews will generally take place at particular points during the life of a project, commonly known as review points or control points. Prince 2, for example, designates a series of checkpoints where the status of work in a project or for a team is reviewed. At the end of each project stage, Prince 2 provides for an end stage assessment where an assessment of the project and consideration of its future are undertaken. Collecting the data. In this video, we are going to see about collecting the data. As a rule, managers will try to break down long activities into more controllable tasks of 1 or 2 weeks duration. However, it will still be necessary to gather information about partially completed activities and in particular, forecasts of how much work is left to be completed. It can be difficult to make such forecasts accurately, where there is a series of products partial completion of activities is easier to estimate. Counting the number of record specifications or screen layouts produced, for example, can provide a reasonable measure of progress. In some cases, intermediate products can be used as inactivity milestones. The first successful compilation of a program, for example, might be considered a milestone even though it is not a final product. Partial completion reporting. Many organizations use standard accounting systems with weekly timesheets to chart staff time to individual jobs. The staff time booked to a project indicates the work carried out and the charges to the project. It does not, however, tell the project manager what has been produced or whether tasks are on schedule. It is therefore common to adapt or enhance existing accounting data collection system to meet the needs of project control. Weekly timesheets, for example, are frequently adapted by breaking jobs down to activity level and requiring information about work done in addition to time spent. An example of a report form, in this case requesting information about likely slippage of completion dates as estimates of completeness. Other reporting templates are possible rather than ask for estimates of percentage complete. Some managers would prefer to ask for the number of hours already worked on the task and an estimate of the number of hours needed to finish the task off. Review. In this video, we are going to see about review. From a manager's perspective, review of work products is an important mechanism for monitoring the progress of a project and ensuring the quality of the work products. Every project is developed through iterations over a large number of work products such as requirements document, design document, project plan document, code, etc. Each of these work products can have a large number of defects in them due to mistakes committed by the development team members. It is necessary to eliminate as many defects in these work products to realize a product of acceptable quality. Testing is an effective defect removal mechanism. However, testing is applicable to only executable code. Review is a very effective technique to remove defects from all work products, including code. In fact, review has been acknowledged to be more cost-effective in removing defects as compared to testing. Early review techniques focused on code, and systematic review techniques were developed for this specific purpose. Utility of review. Besides being a cost-effective defect removal mechanism, review of any work product has several other benefits, including the following mentioned below. Review usually helps to identify any deviation from standards, including issues that might affect maintenance of the software. Review suggests ways to improve the work product, such as using algorithms that are more time or space efficient, specific work simplifications, better technology opportunities that can be exploited, etc. In addition to defect identification, a review meeting often provides learning opportunities to not only the author of a work product but also the other participants of a review meeting. The lessons acquired from a review meeting allows participants to avoid committing similar defects that were discussed in the review meeting and also allows them to make use of the best practices that were suggested. Candidate work products for review. All interim and final work products are usually candidates for review. Usually the work products considered to be suitable candidates for review are as follows. Requirement specification documents, user interface specification and design documents, architectural high-level and detailed design documents, test plan and the designed test cases, project management plan and configuration management plan. Review roles. In every review meeting, a few key roles need to be assigned to the review team members. These roles are moderator, recorder, and the reviewers. The moderator plays a key role in the review process. The principal responsibilities of the moderator include scheduling and convening meetings, distributing review materials, adding and moderating the review sessions, ensuring that the defects are tracked to closure. The main role of the recorder is to record the defects found, the time and effort data. The review team members review the work product and give specific suggestions to the author about the existing defects and also point out ways to improve the work product. Review process. Review of any work product consists of the following 4 important activities. They are planning, review preparation and overview, review meeting, rework and follow-up. The model captures the sequence of the activities that need to be carried out, the input to the activities, and the output produced from the activities. Project termination review. A manager decides when a project should be terminated. As soon as a decision regarding project termination is taken, it is a good practice to conduct a project review meeting. Project termination reviews are important for successful, failed, as well as prematurely abandoned projects. The project termination review meeting marks the official closure of a project. Project termination reviews provide important opportunities to learn from past mistakes as well as successes. By analyzing past mistakes, the project teams can learn to do better by improving their methods and practices. It is important to note that project termination need not necessarily mean project failure or premature abandonment. A project may be terminated for a variety of reasons, including successful completion of the endeavor. When it becomes evident that the project objectives cannot be satisfactorily met, it often makes sense to reach a negotiated closure. On the other hand, an aborted project generally means a loss for most stakeholders. According to a report, about 31% of projects are cancelled during the development phase. Cost monitoring. In this video, we are going to see about cost monitoring. The current status of the project activities before attempting to interpret the meaning of recorded expenditure. Cost charts become much more useful if we add project future costs calculated by adding the estimated cost of uncompleted work to the cost already incurred. Where a computer-based planning tool is used, revision of cost schedules is generally provided automatically once actual expenditure has been recorded. The additional information available once the revised cost schedule is included. In this case, it is apparent that the project is behind schedule and over budget. Graphical reporting tools. In this video, we are going to see about graphical reporting tools. Tracking. The project schedule provides a roadmap for tasks and milestones that must be tracked and controlled as the project proceeds. Tracking is based on the information provided by the people completing the tasks. The ability to track a project is only as good as the data. Techniques. Hold periodic project status meetings for all team members. Evaluate the results of all reviews. Determine whether formal project milestones have been accomplished by the scheduled date. Comparing actual start date to planned start date for each task. Meeting informally with practitioners to obtain their subjective assessment. Using earned value analysis to assess progress quantitatively. Earned value analysis. In this video, we are going to see about earned value analysis. Earned value analysis is an approach for measuring how much work has been completed in a project at given point of time and performance. This analysis can be done by calculating how much time the work has taken and the resources it has utilized. These values are then compared with the planned values of time and resources. If the time taken to do the particular task is greater than what was planned, it means that the project is running behind schedule. Similarly, if the resources utilized are more than what were planned, it means the project has not been managed efficiently in terms of resources. Formally, earned value analysis may be defined as a tool to objectively measure project performance by integrating scope, time, and cost data. Earned value management also provides a means to forecast future performance based on past performance. Earned value terminology. Earned value analysis (EVA). It is a quantitative technique used which we can evaluate the performance of project and predict the final results. For this, we compare present progress and cost incurred to planned estimations. It is the most comprehensive trend analysis technique. Earned value management (EVM). It is project management methodology used for monitoring and controlling our project by measuring the performance work breakdown structure (WBS). Earned value analysis and project management. Earned value analysis is a cost control tool in project management. It is used as a forecaster and tracker for measuring the progress of the project in terms of work done and resources utilized. It should be noted that both these terms, work done and resources utilized, are interrelated when it comes to execution of a project. A baseline, original plan plus approved changes, can determine how well the project is meeting its goal, and baseline acts as a benchmark. Earned value technique compares the cumulative value of the budgeted cost of work performed earned at the original allocated budgeted amount to both the budgeted cost of work scheduled, that is planned, and the actual cost of work performed, that is actual. Actual information must be entered periodically to use earned value analysis. Was each item of the work breakdown structure WBS completely or approximately how much of the work was completed? Actual start and end dates of the activities or tasks. Actual costs of individual activities and tasks. Why is earned value analysis done? Need of EVA in project management, PM. Meeting project deadlines within a reasonable budget is hard to achieve. Focusing on both the parameters is a difficult but a necessary task. Without monitoring and controlling the project, it is nearly impossible to complete it within the scope, time, and cost. Compromising on one of these three factors leads to the overutilization of others, which is not desirable and may lead to contractual penalties. To complete a project in a given time frame and within the given resources, it is necessary to plan for their judicious use, not only at the beginning of a project, but also during its execution. Earned value definitions. Earned value analysis uses three key pieces of project information, which are the planned value, actual cost, and earned value. Planned value, that is PV, is the budgeted cost for the work scheduled to be done. This is the portion of the project budget planned to be spent at any given point in time. This is also known as the budgeted cost of work schedule, that is BCWS. Actual cost, that is AC, simply the money spent for the work accomplished. This is also known as the actual cost of the work performed, that is ACWP. Earned value, EV, is the percent of the total budget actually completed at a point in time. This is also known as the budgeted cost of work performed, that is BCWP. EV is calculated by multiplying the budget for an activity by the percent progress for that activity. EV is equal to percentage complete into budget. For example, if a work package is the installation of 500 new computers in an office and 350 computers are installed, the work package progress is 70% complete, that is 350 out of 500. If the budget for this work package is $200,000 or $2 lakh, then the earned value is $1,40,000, that is 0.70 into $2 lakh. How to measure the project progress? The example above shows a very simple situation for evaluating progress. On projects, determining realistic progress for work packages, WP, is usually more difficult, but is essential for ensuring the earned value analysis is accurate and meaningful. Quantitative techniques are obviously much better than qualitative, that is subjective techniques, for measuring project progress. One thing to keep in mind when measuring project progress is that it is an estimate. Many people spend too much time trying to generate a very exact number, especially when using quantitative techniques. The key is to make it fit for use. Don't spend so much amounts of time determining exact numbers on a small work package. Focus your efforts on a larger value work packages. Remember that measuring progress is an estimate and that the inherent errors on each work package will tend to cancel out as you roll up the progress numbers to a project level. Since the types of work packages on a project vary, no single process reporting method is suitable. The 7 most common methods for reporting project progress will now be described. Quantitative progressing techniques are units completed, tasks that involve repeated production of easily measured pieces of work when each piece requires approximately the same level of effort. Incremental milestones. Work packages (WP) that can easily be divided into a series of tasks handled in sequence. Start-finish. Low value and or short duration activities without readily definable intermediate milestones. Quantitative, that is subjective progressing techniques are levels of effort (LOE). It is used when it is very difficult to measure what work was accomplished for the budget spent. Individual judgment. It is used for complex work not easily measured by other methods. Even though this is subjective, getting multiple opinions on the work accomplished by knowledgeable team members helps determine a more reasonable estimate on progress. 2 other progressing techniques commonly used are listed below. They can be either quantitative and or qualitative depending on how it is used. The techniques are combination techniques, good for complex work occurring over a long time period and use 2 or more of the other progressing techniques. Apportioned relationship. It has a direct intrinsic performance relationship to another discrete work package which is called the measurement base.